Welcome to Back Porch Time with Dan. I'm Dan, and this is my back porch. And this is my wife, Mrs. Back Porch Dan. She's going to be joining me today, and we're going to have a good time of discussion. Well, I'm glad you joined me today. And I want to talk to you about your mindset again. I know I did a recent video about mindset, but I want to go a little bit deeper. And we're going to have some things to discuss together about mindset. What do you think about mindset?
I think it's very important to everyday life and everything in your life. I think mindset is, and your self-talk and all that, I think is very important.
I agree. Sometimes we have to shift our mindset. We have to change it. We can allow ourselves to be in a negative mindset. I know, speaking from personal experience, I really allowed myself to get in a negative mindset. I started thinking that I couldn't do what I used to could do, and just to give you an example, I pretty much quit driving. Now, I shouldn't drive extended distances and things like that. I have to be careful. But I'm still able to drive and drive safely. And I shouldn't give that up if I'm able to drive. That was one thing I'd basically given up, and I wanted to reclaim that and continue to live my life.
Yeah, I was really glad to see you start back up driving yourself places.
And that's just one example of changing our mindset. We have to really focus. It's so important that we focus on what we can do and not focus on what we can't do. I'm as guilty as anybody of focusing on what I can't do and forgetting to focus on what I can do. I think it's important if we can step back and just try to take an objective look at our lives and see it from somebody else's perspective, especially somebody that depends on us and it relies on us for decisions and guidance and mentorship and so many things. If we can just see it from their perspective, we'll really focus more on what we can do and not so much on the stuff that we can't do.
I agree. I know in my life that's very true.
Mrs. Back Porch Dan suffers from autoimmune disease, and she can identify with struggles, with disabilities, with disease, and at times with limited mobility. So she's had her struggles and some dark days, and so she knows where we're coming from.
I do, unfortunately. I don't know, maybe God puts situations in our lives so we can relate to our significant other. I was diagnosed 12 years ago with systemic lupus and with Sjogren's syndrome. And I'm telling you, I've had some dark days. I've had some days where I didn't know if I would make it. And when there's a flare up with the Sjogren's especially, and then also with the lupus, there's days that I can't even walk. I'll get up to try and walk and I'll fall on the floor. So, you know, I was diagnosed 12 years ago, and then 8 years ago, I believe it was, Danny was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And, you know, I think it made it easier for me to understand and to relate what Danny's going through, and I think vice versa. You know, sometimes people don't have compassion for their significant other. They think they're being lazy, or they think they're being, I don't know, just making a lot out of it, and when there's really nothing wrong with you.
Hypochondriac a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of people think you're being a hypochondriac, and anybody that knows me and Danny, most of our lives we both had 2 jobs and took care of our parents, took care of my parents, helped take care of his parents, and plus raising a family and building houses in between. I think we probably worked ourselves too hard, but we were never lazy. But sometimes we get down on ourselves thinking that we've gotten lazy, when really in reality it's not laziness. Because I know he's not lazy, and hopefully he knows I'm not lazy.
I do know you're not. Of course I know that.
We have struggles. I mean, there's days I've been in a flare for the last 4 months with lupus, and I've had days where I can't walk. I've had days where Danny and our son Jordan's had to pick me up out of the floor, get me back to the bed. I've had days where I've done really good and been able to go and do fun things. Like today, we took 3 of our granddaughters to Pumpkin Town to eat, and then to ride around and go to the state park and look around a little bit, and it was a great day. But I'm gonna tell you, earlier in this week I didn't think it would be that way, because I was down, and I had Danny to encourage me a lot. I'm not always as encouraging as he is, and so it's good to have that. It's good to have that with a friend or with your spouse or family member. And if you are a family member of those that have sicknesses and disease, don't judge people. Don't judge people by their feelings, or if they're laying around and they're saying, I just don't feel good. Well, if you haven't walked a mile in their shoes, you need to listen to that, and you need to be compassionate, and you need to be there for them and not judge them. That's just something I feel is important, because I really felt like God was calling me to speak up about that this week, because I have to admit, earlier in the week I was having a pity party and I was down, and because I couldn't do the things I want to do and things I needed to do and the normal things that needs to be done at home, and I was having to depend on others so much, and that's very hard for me, because I was always the caregiver and not one that needed care and needed help. But I've had to have a lot of help in the past few months, and that's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's really hard to focus on what you can do when it seems like all you can see is what you can't do.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, focus on what you can do, but it's not so easy to do that. We have to really shift our mindset to focus on what we can do. It's a discipline. And why is it important? Because exactly what she just said, if all we do is focus on what we can't do, then all we're going to do is feel sorry for ourselves and be in a dark place and just look toward the end instead of the future. And that's no place to live. That's no place to thrive.
That's right.
I want to ask you if you'll let me read a statement to you, okay? I want you to allow me to grant you permission to do what you can and not focus on what you can't do. You don't have to have expectations of something unrealistic or expectations of what you used to be able to do. Those are unrealistic often. You don't have to have expectations of doing what someone else does. Don't compare yourself to other people. It won't help. It's so important that we do something instead of doing nothing. She just mentioned that she and I took our granddaughters today to a fun outing. She did something instead of doing nothing. It would have been easy to do nothing today, but she didn't choose that. She chose to do something. It's so important that we keep moving forward and we focus on what we can do. I hope you get my point with that.
Even if it's something little, no, we couldn't go walk through Table Rock Park today. No, we could not do that physically. With my fall status, his fall status, this is just not something we could do. But we could go across the road to the Welcome Center and walk to the lake, which is a short walk, and go inside and look around in the store, and had a great time doing that. But that was about as physical as it got for us. But we didn't sit at home even though we were hurting. We didn't sit at home even though we were a big fall risk. We decided we're going to get out, we're going to do something, and we're going to make memories, and we're going to have fun. Even if it was riding around. And we did get out. We did something.
Another important thing to remember that you mentioned earlier is self-talk.
Yeah.
Positive self-talk, and I know I've done a video on that already. But one thing I want to remind you of today is be sure you reframe those negative thoughts into positive self-talk. When you have those negative thoughts about, I messed that up, or I'm just stupid, reframe those. Remind yourself that you did the best you could with the decision that you had to make at that time. You did the best you could with the resources that you had. Remind yourself that nobody knows it all. Everybody makes mistakes. I heard a story about a successful businessman, and he was mentoring a young guy, and he said, this is the way you do things, and was teaching him. And the young guy said, how did you get to be successful? And the businessman said, making good decisions. So the young person said, how did you learn to make good decisions? He said, I made some bad ones. Everybody makes bad decisions sometimes. Everybody messes up sometimes. It's not that whether we mess up or not that counts. It's how we handle that. It's not what happens to us that matters. It's what happens in us that matters. And if we take that opportunity not to beat ourselves up with negative self-talk, but we reframe that into a positive self-talk and remind ourselves that we did the best we could and we learn from our mistakes. They say the only stupid person is the one that doesn't learn from their mistakes. So to me that says everybody makes them. But I want to remind you about positive self-talk. Anything to add?
No, well, earlier in the week, I was definitely down and being negative. And, I see him and how no matter what, no matter how tired he is, no matter how bad he's hurting, or no matter how dragging he may be, he still gets up and goes outside and goes to his workshop and does things. And I envy that sometimes. Sometimes I just can't get out of the bed, and I hate that. I cannot stand to be in the bed, but it beats falling and breaking a hip. And so I have to remind myself of that. I have to remind myself, no, you can't get up and go out and do the things you've always done, work in your yard, or plant the garden, or play with the grandkids outside, or do those things that you've always done and always been able to do, well, up until the last few years. But you're still here, and you still have a loving family, and you still have beautiful grandchildren, and you still have a loving family, and you still have a wonderful husband.
And people that depend on
And
you.
people that still depend on me, even if I can't do the physical things for them that I've always been able to do. But I can support them mentally. I can support them spiritually by praying for them, being a prayer warrior for them. I can give an encouraging word instead of being, a discourager. It makes me a lot happier to be an encourager instead of a discourager.
You can use your suffering to give you wisdom and perspective about life that you didn't have before, and you can share that with others. And that can really help somebody. It really helps somebody if you take time to share wisdom that you've gained from suffering. I've said it before, but when I look back on my life, it's not in the mountaintop times that I grew any. I just enjoyed that or whatever. But when I sunk to the valley and the rubber met the road, so to speak, that's when I really grew as a person, spiritually, emotionally. That's when I matured, is in times of suffering.
It's when you really depend on God. It's when the knees hit the floor.
Yeah. That's when faith really kicks in. And faith is so important to have.
In every situation.
I can't imagine a struggle without faith. Yeah. You mentioned growth, and I did, about how that can help you grow. Having a mindset of growth, which I've said before, is so important. If we're not growing, we're basically dying. If we just shut ourselves off and not try to grow at all, not try to do at all, then we're dying. That's not what I want for your life or my life today. I want you to grow. I want you to thrive. I want you to live. I want you to live. And that sort of brings me to my last point today. I want you to understand why I'm doing this. Now, I know that this is a video by somebody that you don't know personally. You don't know my integrity. All you see is what's on the video. But I can assure you that this is not for monetization. As a matter of fact, I'm on disability, and if I tried to make money at something, it would reduce my disability income. And I can't depend on income from something like a YouTube channel to reduce my disability income, which is more of a sure thing in my opinion anyway. So I want you to understand this is not for money. It's because God has burdened my heart with encouragement for others. When I look around in this world, I see people that need encouragement at every angle, every hand. When I look around this world, I just see hurting. I've heard it said that there are more valleys and mountaintops in life, and we're either in a storm, getting ready to go into a storm, or just coming through a storm. And that's true in a lot of ways. So it's important that we frame negative thoughts into positive thoughts, that we have a growth mindset. Those things are so important for us to do. And I want to encourage you that you can do those things today. You can live. You can have a life. You may be in a wheelchair or bedridden. I don't know your physical sentence that the doctor's given you. All I can speak from is the things that I deal with, the things I see her deal with. But I believe in my heart that you can thrive today, that you can have a vibrant life. I've heard testimonies of others who've done it. And it's just my desire to encourage you a little bit today and to let you know that I love you and I want you to do well. I don't want you to give up. I don't want you dying. I want you living. Living. God made you to be in this world, and it's not the same without you. I really want to see you living today. And I want you to tell me about it. I mean, not so it'll boost my YouTube presence or anything like that, but I want to know from your comments if something we've said today has meant something to you. That encourages me so much. I mean, we take time to make these videos, to set up and to try to be on the back porch, come up with thumbnails and catchy titles and all that kind of stuff, so we can reach others and reach more people that need encouragement. That's our desire today. It's our ministry in a sense today. So I hope you'll take that to heart. I hope you'll take time to make a comment and watch this video all the way through.
And if you have prayer requests, put the prayer requests down. We will happily pray for you.
We'll be glad to pray for each and every one that wants us to.
Absolutely.
I guess that's about all the time we have for today. So God bless. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.